Welcome, low ego action heroes and phoenixes. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX Hive. Welcome to the Delta CX Hive. If you want to learn more about my world, it's Delta CX. You can find us at dcx.to, and you can find all of the links to our community at dcx.to. Hello, Ana Lucia. You can find links to our articles, videos, Twitch streams, free Discord, Patreon, Blue Sky. We're in many places, and we hope you'll join us there, especially since I'm trying to reduce algorithms between you and me. And thanks as always to my Patreon members, whether free or paid. I'm happy to have you there. And welcome. This is so funny. No one's going to believe me. When I scheduled this show, I had no idea today was Data Privacy Day. So it just works out. It's Data Privacy Day, and I wanted to talk about privacy and security. And as always, I want to open this up as an audience participation thing. So I want to know your questions, your concerns, your thoughts. Now, I'm not an expert on data privacy and security, but I've been making a number of changes over the last 6 months to try to improve my data privacy, my security, my questions about who can see my files, who can see chats I have with people. And I just wanted to share what I've learned as a non-expert. And of course, this is all time sensitive. So this is late January 2025. I can't say, what the future will be like. Hello, Carla Maria Brazil. Hello. What are your thoughts and questions on personal privacy and security? So this all started for me last fall, maybe August, September. I noticed that and I want to also mention quickly that any company I mention is not sponsored. Nobody has paid me to talk about them. Nobody has paid me to not talk about them. Everybody knows we have no sponsors on this channel. So whatever I say is just my own personal preferences. You may select the companies I don't like. You might avoid the companies I do like. Totally up to you. I'm not necessarily here to force anybody to do anything, and I've got nothing to sell. There's no affiliate links. I make no money here. Okay, so last August, September, I realized my Dropbox was coming back up for renewal, and I was not happy with Dropbox. I think many of us who use Dropbox, a lot of people love it, but I really didn't like how much AI was being brought into the system. I didn't feel like I had a good sense of how that information was going to be used or shared or to train things. You could go into Dropbox and write dog, and it would find all of my pictures of dogs, which again, some people might say, hey, that's cool, I'd love to have that. And other people might be like, why are you looking that closely at my pictures? So, it's again going to be a matter of personal preferences and things like that. So everybody's going to have different thresholds for what they believe is acceptable. So hold on, just want to get something cooking in our Discord channel. I try to maintain it. Okay, so I decided to cancel Dropbox. It was getting more and more expensive. It was bothering me how much, here I am synchronizing sensitive documents or personal photos up, and it seems to be able to read everything. And when you try to write to them or try to read what's going to happen with that, I just didn't feel like it was clear. Maybe they've since made it clearer, but I do worry about the loss of control that we have. And sometimes, who's noticed this? Chat emoji up. Who's noticed this? You go to read the terms and conditions of a service you're using, and they say, oh, we're using these people's API or these people's AI or whatever it might be. Go read their terms and conditions. And then you're like, oh, you couldn't just tell me what I wanted to know? Okay, now I got to read these terms and conditions. Now I got to go read those terms and conditions. And I have to hope that all of this is clear, because we know a lot of this hashtag deceptive design was written for us to not understand. It was written for it to be unclear, and it's often written to have a lot of loopholes and mysterious things. So I decided to cancel Dropbox, and I started wondering, what can I use instead? And I started with some of the typical Dropbox competitors. And then I said, what if I wanted my data and information to really be secure? And this is where I want Ana Lucia to remind us of that. She posted a link yesterday in our Discord, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to talk about this. And now, of course, I can't find it. So let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is, EU alternatives. So Ana Lucia, who is a total hero, reminded us that there is a website, European-alternatives.edu. Again, not sponsored. I can't tell you if any of the products listed there are good or bad or other. I don't know if the website makes any money by listing these products. I can only let you know that the EU has many alternatives to a lot of the American companies you're used to. And I think this is something we want to think about even if you're in America. Why? Because America is going through some changes right now. And I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm just going to say there are some changes going on in America and in other countries as well. So this may apply to you wherever you are, where many people are feeling like there is an increase in lack of privacy, lack of security. People are feeling like information in their phones or computers is going to be used against them, or known by people they didn't want it to be known by, or surveillance of some sort. Now, it seems impossible to block every single possible surveillance tool out there. I've learned a little bit recently. I'm still no expert, but I learned a little bit recently about Stingray and graphite, and these seem very difficult to protect against. So again, we have to go into conversations of privacy and security having some sort of expectations that we can't protect against everything. There are some hacks we're not going to be able to protect against. I think, did people see that there was recently an insecurity in Signal, which everybody thinks is so secure, but I'll talk about in a moment. And that was due to Cloudflare. There was something in Cloudflare that was insecure or hackable, and it therefore made insecure all the people that Cloudflare serve. We're only as secure as that weakest link. And so I think it's interesting, even for people outside of the EU, to consider using EU services. In some cases, they might cost more, and in some cases, they might cost less. So it's not necessarily about the cost. It's more about these privacy protections. The EU has some of the better privacy protections on the planet right now with things like GDPR. But where I landed when I was looking for a Dropbox alternative was Switzerland. Hands up, emojis up. Who knows anything about Switzerland? So a lot of us, especially if you grew up with the American school system, we think of Switzerland as neutral. But of course, in the face of oppression and other things, sometimes being neutral or silent is not the way to go because you are accidentally supporting oppressors. Okay, there's that side to things as well. So some people won't love the past of Switzerland. I get it. But Switzerland is not in the EU. Of course, neither is the UK right now, but there's another reason to focus more on Switzerland. And I think of Switzerland as kind of the Swiss bank of privacy and security. Ana Lucia says, what's bugging me a lot? People are saying the EU doesn't innovate because there are a lot of regulations. I'm happy with regulations. Innovation is still possible. It simply isn't as easy to screw users over. Yeah, this is one of those weird talking points that I see as well, which we're not really going to go into today because we're focused on privacy and security. But I do disagree that the EU doesn't innovate. I disagree that the regulations choke businesses. And I disagree that the EU is communist. I think anyone who thinks the EU is communist is probably doesn't have the completely accurate definition of communism when we think of other countries that are or have been communist. So yes, I think the EU can be very innovative, and many countries are great with innovation and disruption, and so I think that's up for debate. But I landed in Switzerland because it's not part of the EU, but it tends to comply with a lot of EU related things. So things like privacy and security. But I also want to talk about something else I learned while digging into this, and that is something called the 9 eyes or the 14 eyes. Has anybody heard about the 9 eyes or 14 eyes? Hey, Yesterday in Gaming. Yesterday in Gaming says one thing to think about too. Even if somebody isn't concerned about the company themselves crawling their data with AI. Oh, perfect point. Thank you, critical thinkers. Yesterday in Gaming says, if your account gets hacked, imagine how much more data the hacker can comb through your data and find important info. Them having 2 minutes of access is much more of a concern. Absolutely. So historically, let me talk a little bit about 9 eyes and 5 eyes and 9 eyes and 14 eyes. Emojis up if you knew about this already, because I didn't. So this had to do with an old kind of pact or agreement where countries were going to share surveillance and intelligence data with each other, obviously in efforts to try to keep these places safe. It goes back a long way. It goes back to 40s, 50s, Cold War. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. So the original Five Eyes countries that agreed to share intelligence, I'm sure to a certain degree, but they are UK, United States, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. And they lovingly called it Five Eyes, as in what I see, you will also see, because it sounds like they share, I'm sure not everything, but some of their surveillance data. So those were the original Five Eyes. Then we had 9 eyes because other countries joined, especially in the 1950s. And you can imagine some of what was going on that made these countries want to come together as sharing some of this intelligence data. And that's Five Eyes plus Denmark, France, Netherlands, and Norway. And then more countries decided that they were going to join this. Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain, and Sweden. And that brings us to 14 eyes. And what that means is you might think, hey, I'm in the EU and I'm in Germany or I'm wherever I am, and oh sure, maybe the government has some information on me, but that's just Germany's information, right? Not necessarily. Depending upon what it is, Germany might be sharing it with other countries. That means if there were some sort of breach or leak, or the government is collecting information about you for whatever good or bad reason, they can possibly share that information with other countries. And so I started looking for who is a country that tends to be privacy and security focused, that tends to have servers in their own country, which we'll get to in a moment, and isn't part of 14 Eyes. And I landed on Switzerland. You may land on another country, or you may be fine with products made in US or Germany or whatever it might be. I wanted to kind of shift away from that. So I landed on a Dropbox style service, and I can't pronounce this, so I apologize to the Swiss. I just cannot pronounce these things, so please excuse me. I'm going to write it on the screen. Ana Lucia says, I talked about innovation because many companies outside the EU sell their users' data. It's a way for them to make money from their databases. With GDPR and data regulation, European companies can't do that. This isn't a problem for me, and I'm thankful for that, but there are some non-Europeans who have trouble with that for some reason. Sure, hard to say. So again, hashtag not sponsored, but I landed on, someone help me pronounce this, Tresorit. Not too sure if that's a real word or a made up word. I'm going to say it as Tresorit until somebody helps me say it better. I don't know if it's Frenchy sounding or Germany sounding or Italian-y sounding, but that's who they are. And that's what I'm doing now. And for synchronization and cloud file stuff, I have liked Tresorit. Now, some people will say, Proton, Deb, why aren't you using Proton? I did sign up for Proton VPN because Proton is Swiss. And their VPN product seems like a good deal. Again, none of this is sponsored. I'm just trying to protect myself. But Proton's cloud can only back up stuff, I believe, from your local computer, whereas Tresorit can back up and or synchronize from external drives. Now, for that, I used to have Spider Oak, but that is a company that I think is falling apart. That is just a personal opinion. They've had a lot of downtime lately. They keep giving me refunds because they're such a mess. I haven't been able to download my files. So Spider Oak to me is toast. And I have 4 terabytes up there and I'm just going to say goodbye to it. So in a sense, I was able to get Tresorit and replace both Dropbox and Spider Oak because it does the synchronizing file things and uploading the files as you change them type of things, sharing files out to people, but they're not running AI on your stuff. They're not reading your files. They're not making the internal contents of your files searchable. So if you really want a searchable cloud, it might not be Tresorit. The searching is very limited, I think just to the name of the file, but it's not like Dropbox where I said dog and all of a sudden I got a bunch of pictures of my dogs even though the files weren't named dog. And that's because the AI looked at all my pictures and decided they were dogs. I'm thinking, well, good God, there are some bizarre... I am not into nudes, but I did once have to take a rather personal picture to try to show some bedbug bites to Amtrak, which is a longer story. So somewhere there's an unpleasant angle of my butt. Okay, you can see an unpleasant angle of my butt at the beach too, but yeah, I figured it was a wordplay with Trezor as treasure. So that's what, treasure it, kind of thing. So I recommend checking out Tresorit. It may or may not be for you, but what I really liked about it was Swiss company, Swiss servers, Swiss stuff, and no AI, not reading your stuff. They're trying to do the Dropbox thing of having e-signing documents also. I found that feature to be not ready for prime time. So don't use them for e-signing documents. Google Docs now does e-signing documents. But again, some people hate Google Docs because Google's going to see your stuff. That's a whole separate conversation. And of course, Google came up on my phone when I said that. It's listening. So that's one thing that I did to try to secure more of my documents. There's still a lot of stuff that I'm writing in Microsoft Word. I have all of the Microsoft Word cloud stuff turned off. And so it's just on my computer and then it's synchronized on Tresorit. Tresorit also has a phone app. So as I take pictures or screenshots, those get uploaded to the cloud, which I liked about Dropbox. So automatic cloud backup of all of my images and videos of all types from my phone. So if something happened to my phone or I had to reformat it, everything is up on Tresorit. And I think I bought a plan that has maybe 1 terabyte, which is really enough for now, because I took Thomas Wilson's advice and he said, don't put everything on the cloud, put some stuff on the cloud, and for the rest of it, just get a hard drive, get a giant hard drive, stick it on your desk and do local backups, like with, for Mac users, Time Machine. For me, I'm using Macrium. So Ana Lucia says, Switzerland follows European guidelines because they are a part of EFTA, European Free Trade Association. Right. And so that's one thing that I'm doing to try to safeguard my images, my files, and those types of things. Is there a perfect solution? No, but Tresorit seemed like a good one, and I encourage everybody to do some digging or check the European Alternatives website. Even if Tresorit is not for you, check out some of the European alternatives, especially in Switzerland. I think Switzerland is certainly a focus for me right now because, as Ana Lucia pointed out, they're part of the EFTA. They're not in the EU and they're not in the 14 Eyes. And they do tend to be give a bit of the middle finger to anybody who wants to try to subpoena or get access to their files. There are 11 alternatives to Dropbox on that website. Yeah, we were looking at that yesterday. So again, Tresorit is not your only option. They're not sponsoring me. None of the companies I talk about today are sponsors. These are just things I'm using right now. Maybe next year I'll use something else, but that's what I'm using right now because I use, I have a lot of stuff that I keep on a small external drive that I travel with, and I want to make sure that that is constantly backed up. So I've got that going to Tresorit plus stuff on my phone, and then you can sync across computers because I have two laptops and this desktop computer, and that way with all of them running Tresorit, if I put a file in one, it shows up on the other. So you know, the kind of stuff you're used to with Dropbox, except I don't miss Dropbox. I really don't. I don't miss them. And that's my personal, thing. Some people love them, totally fine. I'm not a fan. So that's file storage a little bit. Again, I would probably trust Proton as well, but since I'm backing up an external drive, I don't believe that's something Proton offers at this time. And so Tresorit was a better selection for me. Let's talk about Proton a little bit. Some of you have heard of Proton. Again, not sponsored. Proton is a suite of products where everything is located in Switzerland centric. They have email. So for people trying to get away from Gmail, they have email. They have cloud. They have a VPN that I'm now paying for and using, and I so far like a lot. I ditched NordVPN, which you might like or not like, but in trying to be Switzerland-centric, I decided to go with that. I often have to VPN into America when I deal with a lot of America governmental websites for my personal stuff or my business stuff, so I do VPN often. I had also considered starting to VPN 24 hours a day because I was like, oh my God, we had Starlink and it was like, can Starlink just read everything I'm doing? I don't think I want Starlink to read everything I'm doing. I think I'm not okay with that, but we canceled Starlink about a few days ago. So no more Starlink. Totally done with them. We're back on our Italian, what is it? It's fiber, but it's slow fiber. They're just now digging up our streets and installing faster fiber, which they say might be available to us over the summer. So I really hope we'll have even better internet this summer. Right now, I'm on slow fiber, and even our phones are getting 5G here now. When I first moved here, it was 2G. So no more Starlink. Yep. And saving money, why not? We're using Proton right now for coax cable. No, it is not coax cable. I don't think it's coax cable. I took a picture of what they were doing because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I don't think it's coax. It's like giant spools of fiber. Giant spools of high-speed internet fiber cable. And one of the most exciting things was Pier Mario went out to talk to the work people and found that right across the street where I took that picture is going to be a connection box. So we might eventually be able to say, hi, what does it cost for you to go into the connection box, fork the line, and bring it to our house? So we're very excited about this, but no news yet. So Proton is our current choice for VPN. I've set up a number of profiles. Yeah, coax is what you had before fiber. When I lived in America, I had coax for many years. I think they just kind of skipped that here in Italy because a lot of people, at least where I'm living, don't have coax coming into their homes for television. We literally have an antenna at our window to get television bouncing off the local mountains. So not where I live. So yeah, Proton is a VPN that I would recommend. I've set up different profiles in it, so I have some fast things that I can do, like log into Arizona or log into Switzerland. Why Switzerland? I don't want to log into anything that's 14 eyes. That wouldn't necessarily make sense if I'm trying to keep what I'm doing private. Proton also has different settings, different security settings and types of VPNing, like 2 hops, like, log into Romania and then to Switzerland or something like, I can't remember, Switzerland, then Romania. I can't remember what it is, but you can log into a different country, and then I think Switzerland's in the mix as well. So we also, I think the package we bought came with one Proton email address, which would hypothetically be secure, certainly more secure than your typical Gmail and other things like that. I think people are increasingly frustrated with how much stuff in email Google is reading. My work email is still through Google Workspace. dcx is through Google Workspace, though I don't use the Gmail app to collect my email or send emails. So yeah, you've always got options in how you can mix and match your stuff. Now I want to talk about Threema, but first I want to check when we're going to have an ad on Twitch. Give me one moment. There's an ad break coming up on Twitch. YouTube, you won't have it. LinkedIn, you won't have it. I'm going to try to set that ad to start now. Let's take a short break, and then I really want to talk to you about Threema. I feel extremely strongly about Threema. Still hashtag not sponsored, and we're gonna talk about that after the ad break. So I'll be back shortly. We'll set the ad break to go. Thanks to everybody for their patience. Hey, LinkedIn and YouTube, we're just on an ad break on Twitch. We are now Twitch-centric. So please wait while we run usually 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes of ads. If you have questions, put them up. If you have a topic you want to talk about, put it up. Put it in the chat. I am watching the chat. One more minute of ads. Thanks again to everybody for their patience. Okay, 10 seconds for the ad break. Thanks again to everybody for their patience. We'll be rejoining the Twitch folks. Okay, thanks Twitch folks. Welcome back. Thanks for putting up with some ads. Meanwhile, I noticed in our Slack, I10 had posted an article saying that X, as in Twitter, was creating an alliance with Visa on a digital payments tool. And my natural reaction was, data collection. I think we want to remember that everything is data. The messages we send to other people, the payments we make, a lot of this is just data, and we don't necessarily know what's being done with it, and there may or may not be things that we can do about it. But wherever we can control our communications, that's where I want to talk to you about Threema. So I had a hypothesis some months ago. I had a hypothesis that all of the end-to-end encryption services that we think are so safe and protecting us and so on aren't. I mean, let's start with Facebook. Do we think Facebook Messenger is a safe place to tell people our deepest, darkest secrets, or our health conditions, or that we're pregnant or not pregnant? Or is Facebook Messenger a good place to do that? What about Slack? Knowing that a Slack workspace admin can read all of the private messages. What about Discord? Discord says it purposefully isn't encrypting any of its stuff so that if somebody reports behavior, it can see the message. Okay, that makes sense. As a community moderation tool, it just means we have to have no expectation that these conversations are completely private, because they are not encrypted and can certainly be read by these companies. And so you have to go into using them knowing that if you really want to have a private conversation that someone else isn't going to see, those are not going to be the best tools to use. But let's talk about some other tools that also may not be great choices for reasons. And in some cases, I'm speculating. I can't prove these things. So I think about things like WhatsApp. WhatsApp claims to be encrypted. Do we know that? Is it possible that Facebook or Meta sees any of your communications? Is it possible that there is data that is collected by Meta? Is it possible that there's data that Meta might share with some other company it likes, or a government it likes? What is really happening to our information? And in many cases, we just don't know. And I can't tell you these things are happening. I'm not here as a conspiracy theorist or a tinfoil hat person. I'm just saying, what if? What if the things we think are private are not as private as we thought, especially with American companies? Because American companies will be subject to American laws. In the EU, you've got the country's laws, and then you've got the EU above that, sometimes giving them stricter standards that they must adhere to. America doesn't have anybody above them saying, oh, America, you wanted back doors into people's chats. You can't do that. We're the EU. There's nobody above America, and there's nobody who's going to check or balance what America does, or Canada, or other countries that aren't part of an EU type of arrangement. And so my hypothesis was that it is possible. So again, this is not conspiracy theorist, this is not tinfoil hat, it's just a what if. It's a thought experiment. What if it were possible to for American companies to have your private communications compromised, even if they claim end-to-end encryption? What if WhatsApp were compromised because Meta has decided they would rather have your data and know what you're saying than protect that? What about American companies that might find themselves under orders from a government or a branch of the government that says, we want a way in. We want a way in to see what everybody is saying, and based on your terms and conditions, you can probably do this. Or we're the government, you don't have a choice. We want to know what people are talking about. We want to look for certain people. There are things we want to know. Or we want to track certain people and see what they're saying, who they're talking to. Could that be possible? I think it's not impossible. I can't say it's happening. I can't say which companies are doing it. I can't claim which government is asking anybody to do this. I can only say it feels possible. What about you out there? Does this feel possible? Does it feel impossible that America, just for example, because they're having a governmental change right now, America could say to an American company, we want all the data you have, and we want some data you claim to not have. We want a way to see that data. We want a way to know that data. We want a way to scrape it or feed it into an AI. We want an AI. You can say the chats are end-to-end encrypted. We'll take AI summaries of them. Is that possible? Does anybody think it's impossible? And that leads us to other questions. Also, let's pretend that conversation doesn't happen with a Facebook or a Meta. What if that conversation could happen with a Signal? I'm thinking about American companies that are going to have to answer to American authorities and American governments. Yesterday in Gaming says this is possible. Ana Lucia says it is possible, but depends on the country. I know that happened in Portugal, but they only spied on certain people after getting a warrant, and a warrant here is hard to get. That's a great point. There might be spying or surveillance or reviews of conversations that have a warrant, and there might be reviews that don't have a warrant, and would we ever really know? For example, we know that only some Telegram conversations are fully encrypted, not all of them. So is Telegram safe? You know, it's a question. I use Telegram, hashtag not sponsored, but I recognize that there's probably the company or other people who can see my chats. So I make sure that I'm not talking about anything too personal, too religious, about my health, about where I am, about, so you can make decisions about what conversations you have where, knowing what is likely to be safe and what is less likely to be safe. And of course, if somebody's sitting outside of your window with one of these super surveillance tools and they're just reading your phone remotely, all of this is out the window and nothing is safe. But we have to take a look at what's possible and what's likely and decide what action we want to take. Yesterday in Gaming says, I view it as it only takes one person with access to share that access with another. It doesn't necessarily need to involve any governmental body or the company itself. Sure, also true. We hear about a lot of revenge between ex-partners where they have chat messages or images that they now want to share or use to blackmail or whatever the case may be. So yesterday in Gaming's right. This doesn't come just from governments or authorities. But I think this is on people's mind, especially in America and Eastern Europe and other countries where it's like, where can I have a private conversation? And that's when I stumbled on Threema. And I found that, Ana Lucia says, if they don't have a warrant, that evidence can't be used. And I know that is something they take really seriously. The public ministry had a screw up a few months ago with a confession that happened before they had a warrant. The person walked away and they couldn't accuse them. Yeah, I'm not sure all countries are going to be the same. You're dealing with an EU country that is trying to follow certain rules. Not every country is going to follow those rules. Canada doesn't have to follow those rules. South America doesn't have to follow those rules. America, United States of America, doesn't have to follow those rules. I also wonder about AWS. AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's where so many companies host their services and their databases, and a lot of those servers are in America. What if an American government authority, somebody says, I don't want to talk to Signal, I don't want to talk to Facebook, I'm going to talk to these people. They've got everything on these servers. I wonder what we could see. I wonder what we could get our hands on. I wonder if we can crack the encryption. Hey, Amazon, we're friends, right? Can you give me this stuff? Is that impossible? I don't think it's impossible. Is it likely? Is it happening right now? No, I can't say any of that because, again, this is not the tinfoil hat show. This is the let's think critically about what's possible and let's take action on it. So I stumbled on Threema. I'm going to put this up on the screen. This is what I like to call my holy trinity: Proton, Tresorit, and Threema. Hashtag not sponsored. What I like about Threema is it is a person-to-person chat messaging system or person or group chat messaging system. They have a personal version, they have a work version, because they're basically like a Microsoft Teams or replacement type of thing, though it's more chat groups. I don't think it's channels like Slack. And what's interesting about Threema, in addition to being Swiss and hosted in Switzerland and encryption and EU data protections, and I believe used by military and stuff like that, Threema is, of course, end-to-end encrypted. But when you sign up for Threema, does anybody want to guess what information you have to give to get a Threema account? I will give you a guess. Because think about signing up for Signal. Signal's probably going to know your phone number and or your email address, which means if anybody ever got those records, we know who you are. Facebook definitely knows who you are. A lot of companies make you sign up with email and or a phone number, and sure, they're doing that for their safety or security or policies or know your customer. There's always a reason to do it, but Threema is doing it differently. And I knew Threema was really doing it differently when I searched Blue Sky for Threema, and I found journalists listing a Threema account in their profile and saying, if you have an anonymous tip or information that you want to give me, here's my Threema. And I was like, oh, this is serious. Oh my gosh. This isn't send me a Proton email. This is on some other level. So when you sign up to Threema, you don't have to give them anything. Zero. Nothing. You do not have to give them your name. You do not have to give them your phone number. You do not have to give them your email. You do not, have to give them access to your contacts, because you're not using people's phone numbers. You're using Threema IDs, which are completely made up by Threema. They're a random series of letters and numbers. You do not have to give them your photo. Threema hypothetically should have no idea who I am. They just know there's a bunch of letters and numbers and that person uses the system. There should be no knowledge here. If anybody ever got into these records, they should have no idea who any of us are. Threema is certainly not going to be giving up information to foreign governments or foreign authorities or foreign companies. This is all going to stay pretty locked down. So this is a company that, until something happens, I believe I can trust. This is where I am having my most private conversations about my travels, my movements, my health, my choices, my thoughts on politics. This is where I'm having those conversations. It's not the most feature-rich app, but it does have the simple stuff. It's got messages and attach photos and attach videos and shoot photos and videos and put emojis on things, and you can coordinate it with your desktop. There's a desktop version, which is really interesting because it syncs to it's basically a desktop display of your phone, and if your phone is not nearby or it's stopped connected, the desktop app stops working. It's very interesting. So a lot of really interesting things. Threema is not perfect. I found a couple of things I think they could do better, but there's a lot I like about it. I encourage everybody to try it. And also, you're not the product, because the app isn't free. The way that Threema makes their money is on the personal side. The app is about $5, $6, $7 or euros, depending upon where you are. So you are paying them for the app, one-time fee, not annual, and that means you are not for sale. Also, because they are kind of a Microsoft Teams replacement, they have people who are paying monthly for entire companies of people who want to keep these conversations hypothetically unhackable. So they're making 2-3 euros per month per user in these corporate settings. So Threema should be doing just fine, thank you, and doesn't have to sell you out for ad revenue and other reasons. It got very quiet in the chat room. Everybody still with us? Anybody have thoughts or questions? People checking out Threema maybe? But yeah, again, not sponsored. You don't have to use it. But right now, if I'm talking about dogs and groceries and a funny picture of a dog or groceries, I'm happy to put that on Telegram. I don't mind if Telegram knows that. Telegram might even know where I am. They might know some of my movements. But I don't want them to know the innermost thoughts that sometimes I'm sending to friends or my husband or somebody else. And so for that, there's Threema. I believe that some of these other companies, especially if they are based in America or using American servers, could be compromised. It's not impossible. Could Threema be compromised? Maybe. Also, anything is hackable. Someone told me the blockchain is hackable. So maybe everything is hackable. And I also want to remind people that while Ana Lucia told us some good stories about people, her country tapping into people's chats because they had a warrant and they got this and that happened. I'm talking about beyond countries with warrants and countries looking only at criminals. I think there are some countries on the planet who want to surveil their own citizens or foreigners, and they want to know what everybody is saying. They want to know which side of a war you're for or against. They want to know which side of an issue you're for or against. They want to know which leader you're for or against. That's how I see this. Ana Lucia says, I was checking the alternatives to Slack and Teams. There are quite a few of them. Yes, but my question would be, which ones do I believe are going to be secure? Yesterday in Gaming says, my concern is even if a person is anonymous on one platform, couldn't all that information be cross-referenced with what's available in the public sphere? With AI pattern recognition, I feel like nothing digital is safe. And again, this is a spectrum. It goes it goes as far as you want to take it. Like, for example, if I think that there are changes in a certain country where they are surveilling citizens more, and I need to go to that country for work, what do? I could show up with no phone. I could show up with a burner phone. I have an old Samsung J5 Pro from 2017 that barely works. I could show up with an erased laptop with a browser on it. I could show up with nothing. You can take this as far as you are comfortable. It's really up to you. You might decide, I'm never talking about any of these private things that I'm worried about being found later on anything. I don't even want to use Threema. I don't even want to use end-to-end encryption so-and-so. And that's where the name Threema came from, because it was EEE for end-to-end encryption. Threema. So I think, given AI pattern recognition, could it look at my chats with my best friend and say, oh my gosh, that must be Debbie Levitt? Well, it would have to be trained on Debbie Levitt. And where is that happening? I don't know. And so, again, I'm not an expert here, but I am reading stuff from experts on Blue Sky. I'm doing some of my own digging. And that's where I have concerns. Yesterday in Gaming says, the way I approach it is when possible, only have sensitive conversations in person. Ironically, a written letter is more safe these days. Maybe we'll see a resurgence. Yeah, there are times where I wanted to talk to my husband about an extremely sensitive issue, and I was worried that something on our phones were listening to us, and it might have been his Siri, now that we know that Siri was listening more than it was supposed to have been listening. And I said, leave your phone in this room, leave your Apple Watch in this room, and come with me into my vocal booth, which is semi-soundproof, and I have a topic I want to talk to you about. Or leave all of our electronics in the house, come walk with me down by where I park my motorcycle, and I have a sensitive topic I want to talk to you about. So in that sense, yesterday in gaming is right. The only truly safe conversation is the one that we have far away from devices that might be listening, but that can include surveillance devices we don't know are there. And that's where all of this just gets muddy. And we don't want to get to the point where we're just paranoid. I don't want people to end up paranoid that they're constantly being listened to by everyone, by everywhere they go. I don't want to live like that. I want to just take a higher level of precautions than the average person and get everybody thinking critically about what information they're sharing. Because if you live in a country that is going to, or plans to, or is already harming people or arresting people or detaining people because of things about their life, who they are, choices they've made, choices they don't want to make, who they voted for, any country on the planet. You don't want to make this easy for people. Some people are making this too easy. I look at something like Twitter and Blue Sky and Facebook posts, and people are extremely political, and in some cases they're praying for the death of a particular politician, and I go, don't you understand that everybody can see that? That is now screenshotable. That is now up there forever. That is an AI could easily scrape all of Blue Sky and quickly tell that politician who hopes they die. I don't think we want to make our information easy to find. I think that is going to lead to a lot of uncomfortable conversations and possibly arrests or things we don't want to happen. So that is how I feel about these things. I know it's an hour show and some people are going to watch the first 3 minutes and turn it off, but I think it's really important to have a longer conversation about the pros and cons of taking more precautions about these things. We're already seeing people in a country like America say, oh, well, now that we're able to pull information from people's phones and data from different apps, we were able to see someone was pregnant or not pregnant, or was pregnant and then not pregnant, or whatever the case may be. And for some people, that's normal and that's a fine conversation to have. And for other people, that could be a dangerous piece of information to reveal based on whether or not a state or federal government is looking for people who are in these situations. Hey, Raven Mora says there should also be precautions for biometric data as well. Yes, right. So as far as I know, and again, I'm not an expert on this, in certain countries, and you have to check country by country, they cannot force you to unlock your phone without a warrant, and they can't force you to give up your phone without a warrant. However, there are some countries where if you have biometrics set, they can unlock your phone. They could say, oh, you've got facial recognition? They put your phone up to your face, your phone unlocks, and they go, oh, look, your phone's unlocked. Mind if we take a look? So that means that the safer way to go, and again, I'm not an expert in this, and nothing seems 100% safe, but if they don't have a warrant in some countries, it appears that you are not forced to unlock your phone. I think I read somewhere that it was the difference between giving testimony, telling someone your PIN, your phone's unlock code. That would be providing testimony, which means there has to be a warrant and other things in place. This is something I read about America. But if they can just hold your phone up to your face and unlock it, you didn't give testimony. You just stood there. You didn't do anything special, and that means that could be unlocked. So again, some of these are gray areas, and we don't know how they're going to be handled. We don't know how they're going to be changed, especially when governments change. All we can do is consider these things. Consider the things that make us safe. Consider the things that make us unsafe. Consider where we can have conversations that seem private. Consider not using apps that are likely to share your data, sell your data, or the apps that are there to scrape your data. Sometimes I look at an app and I go, oh, that looks like an interesting utility for my phone. And then when I go into its entry in Google Play and I take a look at what permissions does it get, it wants to read everything on my phone. And I'm thinking, you're a battery meter. You should only know how much battery I have. You don't need to know my location. You don't need to read my address book. You don't need to look at my call history. There are a lot of these apps that appear to be made to look like innocuous games or innocuous utilities. And when you dig a little deeper, they're probably there to collect and scrape and sell and share information. And I think all we can do is start being smarter about this. Start checking the permissions. Start reading terms and conditions. If you don't like reading terms and conditions, copy and paste them into your favorite LLM and say, how do these people use my data? Let the LLM sort it out for you. Hopefully they'll do it accurately. Yesterday in Gaming says, great point, Raven. If you have a device that is tracking biometrics, in theory, it's totally possible to direct ads at you when you're more susceptible to them based on that information. That's right. And Ana Lucia says, by the way, I don't know if they already passed by Italy, but there's a company that was banned in Spain and Portugal called WorldCoin because they were paying people for a scan of their iris, and people were just accepting this without thinking about the possible consequences. Yeah, we had this a few years ago when there was a Russian app that you took a picture of your face and it would like make you look older, and everyone was like, ooh, look what I'm going to look like when I'm older. But it was like this giant collecting faces thing. I personally think that a lot of the things that go around Instagram are there to train AI and to collect information about us. Like when it says, show us a picture of the outside of your house, and it goes around on Instagram stories. I go, this has to be training data, and you're just playing along with it because you don't see the reason not to. It reminds me of stuff that we dealt with further in the past in the digital world where people were checking into Foursquare. Who remembers Foursquare? People were checking into Foursquare. Hi, I'm at the coffee shop. And then someone would go and break into their house because they're like, oh, they're not home. And it's like, oh, these are all great examples of where there's information about people that you haven't even thought about what could a bad actor do with it. And that's what we call it, a bad actor. Someone who doesn't have good intentions, someone who is a criminal or wants to surveil you for, there's no good reason, a bad reason. Ana Lucia says, these guys were in shopping centers approaching people. It wasn't an app. Oh, that's not good. Raven says, we've already seen an unfortunate incident where 23andMe was hacked and the resulting genetic data was used to target certain groups based on genetic data. Exactly. That's another thing I've never done. There's so many things I've never done because I didn't trust them. And people have always treated me, oh, you're the weirdo. Oh, you're some weird old dinosaur. You didn't do 23andMe. You didn't buy an NFT. You didn't do whatever. I feel no pressure to follow the crowd, as many of you have noticed. I never felt peer pressure as a teen. I don't feel it now. You can call me an old dinosaur, and I don't care. And Yesterday in Gaming says, perfect example, this was Pokemon Go, which was collecting geolocation data from all of the users. The game itself was candy coding to get that data. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a lot. We have to remember that the name of the game right now, or the name of most games, is data. And it's our personal data. What do we like? What do we not like? What's going on in our lives, especially our secret lives? I knew something was listening to us, and I wrote an article about this, and people were like, no, it's just a coincidence. I knew something was listening to us because my husband and I were talking about something that we'd never talked about before, that we hadn't Googled, that we hadn't looked up, that we hadn't taken a picture of. This was maybe 4 years ago now. And within an hour, he was getting Instagram ads for products related to what we talked about. Made no sense. has to be listening. Yeah, people are writing all these gaslighting articles. You're just paranoid. It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence that you happen to talk to somebody about a thing, and minutes or hours later, you're getting ads for it on Instagram. It's not. It's definitely not. Especially not when Facebook was patenting a system in which they were going to listen to you watching TV to see if you were paying attention to the ads so they could report back to TV advertisers if anyone's paying attention. So the name of the game is listening to us, seeing what we're saying. Oh, this was, I also had a hypothesis, can't prove this, that was why Facebook bought Giphy, Giphy. Why would Facebook buy Giphy? Why would they want that? Because Giphy is installed in a lot of Slack workspaces. Who wants to connect the dots and tell me what happens next? Have you ever noticed sometimes you install something in a Slack workspace or a community or a browser plugin and it says something like, this is going to read everything you type? Well, of course, Facebook wants to read everything everybody's typing in Slack. Slack's used in a lot of workplaces. That means Facebook would have internal corporate conversations. If this is true, I can't prove it. I'm not a security expert. It's my hypothesis. And when they bought it, I wrote to them and I said, does that mean you can now see everything everybody types in a Slack workspace where Giphy is installed? And they really danced around that one, which made me think the answer was yes. So I think we have to remember that there's so many things that are designed to make us feel special, make us feel elite, make us feel like we're having fun, make us feel like we're part of a group, make us feel like we're expressing ourselves. And it's all really about giving up our data. But again, nothing's perfect. I'm still using Google products. I have an Android phone. I'm not hiding in an underground bunker running Linux on everything. I get it. But my question is, while staying connected to the world, how can I reduce stuff? How can I reduce it? I can't eliminate it, but how can I reduce it? I can reduce it by not sending my DNA to a company. I can reduce it by understanding which services I'm using are encrypted and which aren't. I can understand it by being more mindful of who sees some of my deepest thoughts. I'm not going to post them on Blue Sky because as much as I like Blue Sky, then everybody can see them and screenshot them and AI scrape them and whatever. And I worry about all the people who are posting these either deeply personal things on Blue Sky. I've seen people post what medications they're on and their mental health and their physical health and what they think of this political leader and that. These are things that can hurt you later. I'm not saying they definitely will. I hope they won't. But we must be more mindful in this age of increasing surveillance and increasing data where we are for sale. And some of it is innocuous. Some of it is, hey, Debbie just told Pier Mario he was a little smelly. We'll show him a deodorant ad, to stuff that's way worse. To stuff that's too coincidental. The stuff, and that's why I'm going to leave all my electronics in the house and walk my husband down to where my motorcycle is and have a private talk with him. At times, or turn off your watch, turn off our phones. We're in a hotel room or whatever. I mean, this is the stuff. So it's tough. It's tough because it's stacked against us and it's designed for us to not know or not understand or not care or assume I have already lost all my privacy. Google knows everything. Why does it matter? It matters because these things they're not secure. I'm putting my trust in Threema. I hope that works out for me. Yesterday in Gaming says, many people project their ethics onto others and think, I wouldn't do that, so nobody else would either. We need to have a healthy view of reality and what other people are capable of doing, good and bad. Yeah, definitely. You only have to look at some of the leopards eating faces Reddit or leopards eating faces Blue Sky to remember that there are so many times where we think, I can vote for the leopard eating faces party. It's not going to happen to me. I'm one of the good ones. I voted for the leopard, and the leopard's going to know I'm an ally. The leopard will take care of me. It will not eat my face. And we must remember that we are just surrounded right now by Trojan horses and leopards eating faces, and we have to be much more careful about this. And Yesterday in Gaming is right on it. I said on Blue Sky the other day, I really want to study the psychological phenomena of people saying like, hey, I voted for this candidate. This candidate promised, let's make up a number, 50 things. I disagree with 10 of them, but because I agree with 40 of them, I'm voting for this candidate. But these 10 things that I disagree with, they are just so weird and so out there that I don't think this person would ever do it. But why wouldn't they do it? It's their campaign promise. They're telling you they're going to do it. And then why are you surprised later that they did it? You know, sometimes we just have to take people at their word, and we shouldn't assume, they're never going to do it. And we see that even outside of politics, where there's somebody we know who sometimes threatens violence. And that guy, I had a friend many years ago now, an ex-friend, and this person had a sibling, and the sibling was threatening their ex-partner. And everyone said, oh yeah, he's a little unhinged. He's threatening that person, but he'd never do anything, right? Well, wouldn't you know he did something and went to jail for it. And so I think that we have to not make excuses for people. We can't give them the benefit of the doubt. And especially if they're flying a flag saying, I'd like to do this, or I might do this, or I'm going to do this. We have to listen, and we have to take that as it is. We have to take that as something possible or likely or already happening. We can't say, oh, well, I think that's too weird. That person would really never follow through on that, right? They're not going to do that. That's just too weird. Or there's no way they'll do that. Everyone's telling them not to do it. Guess what? There are lots of things I've done that people told me not to do, and I did it anyway. Because I decided that's what I wanted to do, and sometimes it worked out for me, and sometimes it didn't. So I think, as usual, I just want to inspire people to critical thinking. Think more about the data you're sharing, the conversations you're having, the pictures you're posting of where you are, where you live, who's in your household, inside pictures, outside pictures. This is all data. And there are ways that it can be used against us that we're not going to be happy with. We have to think about how AIs are going to copy our voices. They might call our loved ones and say, oh no, I'm in trouble, I need money. Now, of course, anyone who knows me knows that I would never make that call. They should hang up immediately. But there are other people who would definitely fall for an AI voice of mine saying, oh my God, I need help, I need money. Anyone who knows me knows I wouldn't do that. So, my husband and I have had some conversations where we said, if we get a call and we hear the other person's voice and we're not sure if it's real, especially because they're asking for something out of the ordinary, like I need money right now or something I need you to do, I said, let's ask each other an awkward question that the other person that no one's going to know but me and you. Ask an embarrassing question, ask an awkward question. Makes me think of the old Saturday Night Live sketch where the guy goes, where is my secret freckle? Come up with a few things that only you two should know about each other, or a secret word, a secret phrase, and make sure that that's something that everybody knows to use. So I just want everyone to be more careful as we move. It's 2025. It's freshly 2025 when I'm talking about this, and I feel like we're moving into an age of increased insecurity, increased lack of privacy. We thought companies were going to become more ethical. I feel like they've become less ethical, and we can't wait for them to save us or have, everybody say it with me, empathy. I'm not seeing the empathy. I'm not seeing the empathy. I'm not seeing the ethics. And we have to do our best to take care of ourselves and decide where we draw the line on what risks we're willing to take and what information we're putting out there. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, or discussion points before we wrap up for today? While I ask that usual question, I'm going to check the calendar to remind everybody tomorrow is the Q&A Ask Me Anything live stream. We normally do a co-working session before that, but this week I am doing some interviews for a freelance project I'm on. So if I do the co-working session, it might start late or I might just skip it this week. And we've got Saturday karaoke. I'm already planning a bunch of work-themed songs. So send in your work-themed songs idea. Next week, on the Tuesday, February 4th, we're going to do a Take Action Tuesday about some changes I made to my resume, first with ChatGPT and then with Claude. And I haven't been applying to a lot of places lately, so I can't tell you if the newest changes are having an effect of any kind. But I want to talk about some changes I made that I think probably didn't work for me, and then some changes I made that I think made my resume much better. And I hope that people will consider these things and give it a try, whether they do it themselves or they do it with the help of an LLM. Good show. Thank you. It's an important topic. It definitely falls into the life bucket more than the work bucket. But here on the Delta CX Hive, we are supporting your work and life path wherever you are on it. And some of that is going to be just some personal conversations. So next week we'll talk about resumes, which are a little bit more in the work bucket. So I'm going to try to play us out of here. I've received complaints that we don't have the closing song. So we've got this one. Is that too loud? I don't hear it. So hopefully that's not too loud. That's Quit Forever by Toehider. Everybody knows Toehider's one of my favorites on the planet. He wrote our opening theme song for me, the Low Ego Action Hero song, and this is not written for me. This is Quit Forever from one of his EPs from last year. I hope you'll check him out. Hopefully this isn't too loud. Let me know if it's out of balance. So we're going to quit for now, and I will see everybody possibly for co-working tomorrow, but if not, at 7 p.m. Italy time for the Ask Me Anything. A little bit loud. Okay, good to know. Let's adjust that. Quit Forever instrumental. I got the stems. All right, how's that? That should come down a few decibels. Let me know if that level is better. Perfect. Okay, great. Well, I will press save after the show ends. Great. Well, thank you again, everybody. Great conversation. Please share to people who are thinking about these things. Please talk to your loved ones about services like Threema, because I think we have to get away from some of the mainstream message services that might not be in our favor, might be easily compromised, and etc. Have a good one, and I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Bye.